Okay, we are going to talk about fragments today, fragmented sentences. What is a fragment? A fragment is basically an incomplete sentence. So what makes it incomplete? First of all, we have to think about what a sentence is. A sentence has some criteria to it. First of all, it has to have a subject, the thing or person or idea that the sentence is about. That information is being told about this subject in the sentence. Secondly, we have to have a verb. Now, sometimes the verb is really obvious. It's an action verb. We jump, we punch. Those are visual action verbs. Sometimes you have to look for a linking verb, just something was, I am. Those are no action. We're going to say something about the person or the thing that is being discussed in a sentence. And finally, it has to have a complete thought. A lot of times, people don't think about the idea that it has to have a complete thought, but you think about it. I am has a subject, that's the I, has a verb, that's the am, but that's a linking verb, and so it's linking to something else. If I walk in a door to somebody's house and I say I am, they're going to look at me pretty funny because you are what? Stupid? Ugly? There has to be something else there to complete the thought. So a fragment occurs when we don't have one of those, when something's missing. Now, there are a lot of ways that fragments can happen in your essays. Some of the more frequent ones that I've found include these. We have perhaps a sentence that has some kind of connecting word starting it, but it never finishes. For example, after he takes the prerequisites. That can't be a whole idea. There has to be something else there. Now, maybe the person who wrote this had something over here, another sentence, that said something about the course that he wants to take having prerequisites. Maybe he can take that course after he takes the prerequisites. But that all has to be one sentence. Any of these words, we're going to have another complete idea there. For example, I see it a lot with although. Somebody will say something like, I wasn't particularly thrilled about having to take that course, and then they'll put a period here and they'll say, they might say, I wasn't particularly thrilled about having to take that course, period, although I can see how it could help my career. So what's happening here, why is it a fragment? If we look at this part of it, I can see. So we have a subject, verb. This completes the idea right here. What is this doing here? It should be acting as a connector to not being particularly thrilled about having to take that course. And therefore, that has to happen. This part of the sentence needs to be connected to that part of the sentence. So if I were grading this in an essay and I saw just that, although I can see how it would help my career, I would have to put down my symbol for a fragment, incomplete sentence. Another way that you see a lot of fragments is with ing phrases, gerund phrases. So that, for example, if I said, got a little crowded there, sorry about that. If I said, taking into account her need for some documents, taking into account, okay, first of all, I go back to my definition. I don't see a subject. The account isn't the subject. Somebody is taking into account. So I really don't see a verb either. And I certainly don't see a complete thought. So this misses on all ends. However, if this were the first part of a sentence, it would make sense what is trying to be said there. Taking into account her need for some documents, comma, she came well prepared for her audit. Now I have a subject, I have a verb, I have a complete idea, and this part just adds to the complete idea. So sometimes we're looking at an ing phrase, a gerund phrase, and we're thinking that this can be all by itself. But it can't be. It has to be part of a larger sentence. Finally, a lot of times I'll see nouns only with modifiers, but the nouns aren't actually doing anything. And this is a fragment as well, because we basically have a subject, but do we complete the idea about the subject? Okay. I'm not sure where that would land in an essay, a college essay, but the man with the tattoo of Daisy Duck on his right bicep. That gives us a lot of information, but what about that man? He didn't do anything. There's no verb in there. So this is an incomplete idea as well. We could say the man with a tattoo of Daisy Duck on his right bicep slipped on a banana peel and fell. Then we have a verb and we have the complete idea. But as it is, just because we have a lot of information about a noun doesn't mean that we have finished the thought. So, what does all this mean as far as your writing? How do you figure out where you've got the fragments in your essay? I once had a student who had a major problem with fragments. I don't think she turned in an essay where there weren't at least 4 or 5 or 6 fragments. The advice I gave her was always read of course you're going to read your essay, you're going to proofread it. You're going to start at the beginning, you're going to proofread it all the way to the end. To this student, I would say proofread it that way and proofread it backwards. In other words, read that last sentence in your essay first. Look at that as a sentence. Does it have a subject, verb? Does it make sense as a complete thought by itself without having to depend on something before it or something after it, as in this case? Then read the second to the last sentence. Then read the third to the last sentence, and so on until you get back to the beginning of the essay. Then you're looking at each individual sentence and making sure that it is a complete sentence. Subject, verb, complete idea. If you follow those steps, you should be halfway there to taking care of your problem with fragments.